I just am really excited by the last couple of presentations, by the whole day today, because I think that what we just heard from Caleb and from John sits really at the edge of what the creative act is today. The idea that we can be creative, not necessarily by creating something that's new, even though their inventions clearly are, but that to do that, to get there, we have to have a different kind of way of looking, a different way of seeing the resources that we already have. And so I'm very happy to be here, very happy to talk about portable light on behalf of an interdisciplinary team that includes architects, designers, anthropologists, medical doctors, material scientists, media scientists, an incredible team. So I'm grateful for their efforts. Now, portable light, I'm going to share with you a little bit of the story of how we developed this. It's really a breathtakingly simple idea. Could we have a global initiative to develop a completely autonomous, a completely self-sustained light engine that would be completely portable, would not have any wires, would use renewable energy, and would also produce a little bit of power? So that is the objective. We have, in the last year, received requests from all around the world. We have 2 projects in Mexico, 2 pilot projects, which I'll speak to you about tonight. Another one starting in Australia. I will try in my talk, oh, does this not work still? Okay, good. I will try in my talk, though it's very serious and it's a topic that I'm passionate about. I'm going to try to introduce a little bit of humor for the human side. And I'm going to be breaking a few things. I'm going to be throwing some technology around. And I'm going to try to be as provocative as I possibly can. And I really look forward to engaging with all of you. So there is a physicist at Columbia University recently who gave a presentation. And he did all the calculations. And he found that we could create a gigantic solar array, a glass solar array. And if we made a solar array that would be about as big as the state of South Dakota, it could power the entire North Continental landmass. And in fact, every continent could have one. Now, this got me to thinking about the scale of power. And this session is called The Creative Instinct. And I had the instinct, if you will, that this was really the wrong scale. The theory might be right, the calculations might be right, but who's going to build a giant glass solar array that's going to cover half of the state of South Dakota? It's not going to happen. So if our objective is to put something on the ground now, we can rule this out. We could even subdivide the amount by 20. We could subdivide the amount by 100. The scale of power would still be too big. So I grew up in Woods Hole, which is a community on the Cape. And I have very vivid memories of looking at fireflies. And I began to think about what would be the smallest increment of power or light that could be useful. And how could we take something that was quite small and make that smallness not a liability but an asset? And if you think about the way that fireflies communicate with one another through their flashing, they fall into synchrony. They are many small independent sources that function together in a larger way as a network. And that was the instinct. That was the impulse, really, behind the Portable Light Project. So we started to make, my team and I started to make a short list of the requirements. If we wanted to make something for the Global South, what would it need to be at its most basic? It would need to be simple. That's kind of a no-brainer. It would need to be something that's really reliable, something that's obviously rugged and durable. We wanted it to be extremely lightweight because we wanted it to be portable. We didn't want any kind of renewable energy stuck on buildings, on roofs, because people move, and we wanted something that was not at all redundant. And then there are a lot of different kinds of people in the world, and so we felt this technology really needed to be adaptable. We also wanted it, this is an image actually from New Orleans. I thought I would just slip that one in for you, so it's not the developing world. But we wanted it to be completely self-contained, something that's self-sufficient. And so we asked ourselves a very simple question that bucks a little bit the kind of industry adage when one is thinking about new technology. Usually the industry says, well, this is a great technology, it's a new technology, but we need to wait until this technology matures. I don't know how many of you have heard that phrase. Well, that might work for wine, but it couldn't work for us because we really felt committed to trying to get something on the ground that would be practical and that would be immediately available. So we asked this question: what can we do right now with the stuff that we already have? And so that caused us to look around our world and see things in a different way. And our strategy was very simple. We tried to take existing large market applications that already were being mass-produced and rethink their end purposes, really rethink their value. So we moved them sideways in a process that we call adjacent marketing from these existing, very common markets into new, quote-unquote, needs-based market. So for example, probably when you were walking here, many of you passed the white high-brightness LEDs in stop signals that are here in Camden, everywhere in the United States. So it's a question of kind of looking at that and saying, okay, I'll take that component. I'll take that component. Sometimes we actually go to toy stores like Toys R Us, and there's a hybridic way that we can take components and repurpose their end use and their value. We needed a waterproof, a flexible membrane switch that would be very reliable, that would have several 100,000 duty cycles. So we went to an appliance store and we said, okay, new way of looking at something. The dishwasher may cost $299. But that switch in the front plate, because this is an existing market and it's mass-produced, costs 4 cents. So we'll take that switch. We needed a power source, something to collect and harvest the power. And so we thought immediately of the cell phone industry, and we said, right, let's take those very small, rechargeable lithium-ion batteries that are so common that you all have right now in your cell phones. We'll use that cell phone battery, no matter that it's a very small capacity battery. We'll make the best of it. We'll try to think about a product that exists in the space between a single application and a system. So the idea was to try to open up a new space that is neither a single-use, one-of-a-kind hard product, nor a completely centralized, robust system, but something in that in-between space. So we took all of these things, added a digital brain, a chip that the Portable Light team developed, and combined it with a flexible nanotechnology, a solar nanotechnology, which is this material here. I'm an architect, and many people on my team are architects, and I want to try to communicate to you what I think about this material. It's completely different. It is much more like a non-woven fabric or a textile. It's obviously bendable. Well, I'm just going to smash it a little bit. And I can dent it, but this panel is still going to work. Okay? Now, let's pretend that we're at a wedding. Okay? And I have inside here a glass solar cell. All right? So I'm going to smash this, and then I'm going to show you, take a quick picture of that, and show you what that looks like. That would be this, the next slide. That looks like that. Looks like this. So not only is this heavy, but this is really breakable. And that's a problem, because in rugged conditions, and 26% of the world's poorest geography is in extremely rugged conditions, many of them mountainous, this form of energy that we're familiar with just won't work. So I'm just going to put the international no sign over that. And by the breaking of this glass photocell here amongst the members of the PopTech community, I'd like to make a covenant that we are all going to move on and think about the kind of materiality, the kinds of forms, the material surfaces, the architectures that can be produced with this new class of materials. So our first prototypes were incredibly big, bulky. We had a chip that was 10 inches long, but we persisted, and we were very fortunate to work with this group of people. These were our first clients for the Portable Light project. They are a group of indigenous people called the Weeksarika. They call themselves the Weichol Indians. They live in the very remote part of the Sierra Madre Mountains of Mexico. They have a robust, a living tradition of Mesoamerican weaving that's more than 2,000 years old. So as you can imagine, these clients don't really email us. They don't call. But we have had the privilege of working with them and working with a number of different community leaders and showing prototypes that we developed, taking them into the field, showing them to people. You're seeing a woman here looking at solid-state lighting for the very first time, and finding out what was wrong about these prototypes and trying to make them a little bit better. Now, there are three characteristics about portable light that turned out to be important, and I'd like to share these with you. The first is that this is small. This is a small amount of power. And what John was saying about power over the air, power casting, applies here too, that there are scales of application that different units of power can serve, and that there are other scales that they simply can't serve. So what do we have here? 2 high brightness LEDs of the kind of the white traffic signals, about 100 lumens of light. That is, 40 lumens is generally about the amount that's needed to read, so it's a fairly bright white light, and a small cell phone battery, 3.7 volts, 1,800 milliamps. And what we did was to try to work with that very small battery capacity and develop a pretty good run time to charge time. About 3 hours in the sun, exposing the material to the sun, holds enough power to let 1 light run for 10 hours and let 2 lights run for between 5 and 6 hours. We also needed to make it smart. We needed to make it physically smart, and we needed to make it digitally smart. And the physical smartness is an idea that's also simple. We actually borrowed an idea from 19th century surgeons who used to operate by the light of a candle. And to make the single candle light more effective in the operating theater, they had many mirrors around it. We didn't want breakable mirrors, but we developed a form of soft optics with a lining material, a very reflective lining material, that can be manipulated by the user in a number of different configurations so that they can have a flashlight-like bundle, they can open it up, they can hang it from the ceiling like a lantern, they can work on it horizontally, and so forth. And this material is found on the inside of insulations in buildings, and it's pennies, it's a square meter is pennies. So again, looking at an existing resource from a context, architecture, building materials industry, and bringing it over into optics. We also, we probably could use John's invention here, but we also put a digital intelligence on board. And so when we connect these elements, there are 2 protocols that allow the entire community of connected portable lights to charge faster and more efficiently than any single one individual would do through a phenomenon which you probably know is called digital intelligence. So the protocols are quite simple. I have power and I need power. And so that evens out the whole system and allows gathered units to charge more quickly. We also can do light leveling where, for example, a doctor could connect 5 units and have each one be at the same light level. Those which are, let's say, lesserly charged or slightly undercharged would come up, and there would be a sharing and borrowing of light to make an even operating theater. The third thing is that we wanted it to be shippable. So they're small, smart, and shippable. And I've asked Linda to ship me a couple of units here. Linda, can you? Thank you. And another one. Thanks. She was worried about this, but it's really okay. Because, you know, when you see those UPS commercials and the man just gently hands the box wherever they are in the world, well, that's before it's been in the plane and it's been loaded and unloaded. So this is a really practical fact about getting anything to a remote place that sometimes is ignored. So afterwards, I will set up one of these. We can turn on. We can power it up when there's a little bit less light. And all of this blah 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 here, this interim final rule. I'm not going to bore you with the fine print. These are the FAA regulations that change about every 2 weeks concerning the shippability of rechargeable batteries, specifically lithium-ion batteries. So with a larger solar array, you can collect more power in a larger battery, but there are liabilities around the shippability of that. You can take a cell phone on the plane, and you can take portable light units on the plane too. You can't use them in the same way that you can't use your cell phone, but you can bring them on the plane. So they're eminently shippable. Now, that's a good thing. The Weichol Indians travel about 500 miles every year. They go down to the Pacific coast, to Nayarit, where they work on tobacco plantations. And that's not a very good work option for them because there they're exposed to toxic pesticides that go unregulated in Mexico. They also go to the eastern Sierra, the Sierra de Catorce. This is their homeland, the Sierra Madre Mountains. Just in terms of geology, it's really characterized by these very steep ravines and these very rugged cliffs. And it would be doubly costly to try to bring electricity here in a centralized fashion. It would be costly because of the traditional capital outlay of poles, roads, civil engineering, and it would be costly in environmental terms because some of the most environmentally sensitive land also occurs in the same kind of geography. So I'm just showing you a little bit about the setting here. And we tend to move from family to family and to propagate units by word of mouth. Sometimes we have distributions where we have a raffle. And the first set of prototypes, we gave them away. And this is a kind of a, if we can turn on the sound on this, it gives you a sense of what this is like. This woman is actually covering her hands. It's like a kind of party atmosphere for people who are traditionally almost reserved. The way that the woman just covered her hands, she couldn't believe that she won a portable light unit in a raffle. And in every community that our team goes to, we have lists of people who would like more. So we know the benefits about light. For example, they extend beyond just illumination. In a kitchen, for example, this is Kristalina Robulus's kitchen. She has 4 children. In the kitchen, she can actually see the poisonous scorpions, swat them down before they can sting. She has the light and the time to cook a more nutritious meal instead of the kind of instant meals that have become fairly common and which are very expensive. That same unit can be taken down so that one of her sons can read, can take it anywhere around the rancho, take it to the rainy season to one place, in the dry season to another. Kristalina can work by this. The light can be shared for doing homework. And then the whole thing can be taken to a completely different town, and it becomes a kind of a micro-enterprise, a mini market. So those are just some of the advantages of light that you can touch, light that's portable, that you can carry with you. Now, I want to be, before I conclude, I just want to describe to you a very unexpected event that happened to us. Bags in Weichol culture, these woven bags that are made on the backstrap loom, are not accessories the way we would think about them. They are elements that contain the cultural identity of this group of people, and they're passed from family to family. So a group of women approached us and said, look, we like your units well enough, but could we make our own? Could we co-create this with you? And thus got started the Flex Kits, whereby we just made the technology. You can see Estela Hernandez here weaving, warp weft, and making these bags, her process here. These are kind of hybridic designs. These are completely her designs with the portable light technology, and it's a kind of combination of Mesoamerican backstrap loom weaving traditions that are ancient and solar nanotechnology. So it's a cool light. I'm going to wrap it up here, but you're applauding for her. This is her design, and it's really very cool that these people can bring these two kinds of technologies together. It's a cool light, I was saying. It's physically cool looking. I think we developed a reflector for them, but it's cool to the touch. It's much more like living light. It's much more like the light in the ocean. It's much more like the light of the firefly. It is not a hot or a dangerous light. So I want to conclude with 2 idea challenges. One for the cell phone industry, maybe the folks from Nokia, and one for all of you. And for the cell phone industry, the question is, can a project like Portable Light become, can it allow us to look at the cell phone in an entirely new way? You think about the hosts of adaptable materials that can now harvest energy and produce light. Can we think about a cell phone that's wrapped in a unit that can harvest energy or give off light? Or does the cell phone maybe become a kind of a dongle that gets attached to a unit like this? So we borrowed from the cell phone industry the rechargeable lithium-ion battery. What can we now give back? Could this be a way to produce power that would be useful to expand the markets for cell phones? And if so, can we think about this power between the scale of the individual unit and the network system in terms of community-based healthcare and community-based education? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila.